Hello, and welcome to the Classical Guitar Heroines podcast.
Join us as we celebrate the remarkable contributions of women in this timeless art form, featuring insightful interviews, captivating stories, and performances that showcase their talent and dedication.
I'm your host, Bridget Gerard, classical guitarist and member of the Kitchener-Waterloo Guitar Orchestra.
And I'm your host, Mariette Stevenson, founder, music director, and conductor of the Kitchener-Waterloo Guitar Orchestra and professor of guitar at Wilfrid Laurier University and the University of Waterloo.
We are excited to bring you the lives and music of these classical guitar heroines, past and present, to share with you their enduring impact on music and our world.
In this episode, we will interview and feature recordings by the Canadian guitarist Emma Rush. Emma is widely regarded as one of Canada's premier classical guitarists, and her career has commanded world recognition. She has performed numerous festivals, including the Shanghai International Guitar Festival, Festival de Guitarras Lagos de Moreno in Mexico, the Future Echoes Festival in Sweden, and the Iserlohn Guitar Festival in Germany. Emma is a favorite guest at Guitar Fest West in Calgary, the Guitar Alla Grande in Ottawa, the Sawmill Beach Guitar Festival, and the Montreal International Guitar Festival in Canada, and she tours regularly across Canada and internationally. Emma Rush is passionate about bringing classical music to unusual spaces and bringing unusual music to classical spaces. She regularly tours rural, remote, and other communities where live music experiences are rare. Her concerts are intimate and engaging and feature rarely heard historical works, little-known gems of the Latin American guitar repertoire, folkloric music from around the world, and always music by female composers. A Dream of Color is her most recent recording, which was released in July of 2023. From her 2020 recording, Wake the Sigh, here is Emma Rush performing Air Varie de Vive Henri IV by Julia Piston. That was a recording from our guest, Emma Rush, of Air Varie de Vivre Henri IV by Julia Piston. Emma, welcome to Classical Guitar Heroines.
Oh, thank you so much. It's great to be chatting with you both.
Now, Emma, you're originally from Hamilton, Ontario. When did you start playing guitar? And was guitar your first instrument?
I started quite late in the scheme of things, and it wasn't my first instrument. I grew up playing all kinds of stuff. I started with piano lessons, like so many kids do, and then through school, I played the cello, I played the oboe, I played the saxophone, and then in high school, I kind of drifted away from music a bit, and it was after I graduated, and I was a little bit aimless, I suppose. And I had some friends studying music at Mohawk College that were playing classical guitar, and I heard guitar and just loved it. And I had, I'd sort of messed around with playing some other kinds of guitar, and I don't think I was very good at it. It didn't feel like that natural. And then when I found classical guitar, it just seemed to like fall into place for me. And maybe it was like the reading music, which I could already do, or I'd grown up listening to a lot of classical music, so that felt very comfy for me. But yeah, that was when I was 19, and it was just a lightning bolt. I jumped into it and started working, really hard, and wound up going to school for music the year after that. So it was a late start, and I played catch up for quite a while. Maybe I'm still doing it.
That's wonderful. Actually, you're that's not late. I started at 42, so that's not late. You did an undergraduate degree at Dalhousie University in Halifax, and it was a base for you in 2021, 22. What is it about Nova Scotia that draws you back?
That's such a great question. It's a lovely spot. I love being near the ocean. The sort of pace of life in Nova Scotia is a lot more relaxed than Southern Ontario. People are very kind, very open, and it also has, an incredible cultural landscape. There's so much art going on. There's great music from things like sort of traditional Celtic Nova Scotia music to really, really like incredibly high level classical music and everything in between. So it's a really, really vibrant place to be.
And while you were at Dalhousie, you met Dale Kavanagh, who is Canadian guitarist, teacher, composer, member of the Amadeus guitar duo with Thomas Kirchhoff. And you studied with her in Germany. So, how has she been a mentor or role model for you? And do you have other female role models?
Yeah, meeting Dale was another one of those sort of lightning bolt moments. She's just a really inspiring person, and I first met her actually in Germany. After my first year at Dal, I went to her guitar festival in Iserlohn, and I heard her teaching a master class, and it was just like, that's the person for me. And so it really kind of informed how I approached the guitar and how I studied for the 3 years after that, because I had this goal that I was going to go to Germany and study with her. And when I did that, it was really incredible. Like, obviously, it was amazing to just be living in Europe. There's a whole different, level of guitar playing, of music making there, and such a deep cultural history there with that kind of music that was it's so incredible to be immersed in. But working with Dale, like she was a very, very like incredibly generous teacher. And I think what really was maybe the most inspiring thing is that she always set such high levels of excellence for herself in her playing and her teaching and her composing and everything that she does. And I think that really comes across in the lessons and inspired me and inspires her students to sort of do the same. And when you're around somebody that's really like living your dream all the time and doing it so well and being so enthusiastic with it, and then, sharing their time in such a selfless way, it was, just a incredible, incredible experience for me.
After studying with Dale in Germany, you returned to Hamilton in Ontario and established the Hamilton Guitar Society. And I've always been curious, how did that come about and what help did you receive from the community?
It came about because I moved back to Hamilton spur of the moment, sort of accidentally, and I was not planning on staying there. I was just going to stay there until I found a teaching job somewhere or who knows what. It was just going to be a temporary stop, and that turned into like 14 years. But the main reason for starting Guitar Hamilton was just because I was lonely for guitar company, I think. So there was really nothing going on in Hamilton, and I was the only guitarist really based there that wanted to be, creating a scene in Hamilton and wanted to be an active player. So I just kind of jumped in. And actually, you know what started it? It was Dale Kavanaugh who was like, "We're going to be in Canada. Any chance you could sort out a concert for us?" And then I thought, well, I may as well just start a whole series. And that turned into a festival. And it was a really, really special organization, I think, for the years it was active. And the community in Hamilton was absolutely awesome. We had great audiences at the concerts, huge attendance at the festivals, and I think it was it was a pretty wild audience too. There'd be so much like cheering and clapping and always a big crowd at the pub after the concert. Yeah. But, yeah, people really embraced it, which was really beautiful.
In 2020, you released Wake the Sigh, a recording of music by women from the 19th century. Can you describe for us the research that went into preparing for that project?
Yes. So, well, the project started because I accidentally bought a romantic guitar, right? Like a copy of a period instrument. And the luthier, who is Canadian, Mio donor, he was telling me about how he was making these copies of these Stauffer guitars. And he was like so into it that I was like, I'll take one. And then I got the guitar and was like, what am I going to do with this? Because I was not playing like any romantic music at that time. And around the same period, I had the opportunity to go to Lübeck in the north of Germany to do a artist residency there. So when I was putting forth my proposal to do that, I was like, what can I do that would be worth 2 months in Europe that could use this guitar? And I just had the idea of seeing if there's any music written by women from that period. And like I really didn't know about any. I had, a vague idea about Katerina Pratten, and I'd heard that Mauro Giuliani had a daughter who was a composer, but the information, even at that time, which is not that long ago, this was 2018, it was so hard to find. And then so I did go to Germany and was able to do a lot of sort of on-site visits to different libraries, but I also spent hours and hours and hours on the internet going through different online archives, library catalogs, that kind of thing, like all kinds of specialist websites, and then getting in touch also with people that are sort of experts in music from that period to see what they had come up with. So it was a lot of research, but it was, in my mind, it's just so fascinating. And you find like one little item, like a small mention of somebody, and then you can kind of dive in and slowly put together, a picture of what, some composer or guitarist might have been like, and slowly start figuring out where maybe the only copy of their music is, and so yeah, I find it just so thrilling, and I've had many, many like goosebump moments, or sort of like, aha, I finally found it, and
That just sounds so amazing.
yeah, and I mean, that's a project that I'm super proud of it because it was really meaningful for me, and I think it is a really good sort of contribution just to the like recorded guitar library and just to sort of what's available to us now. And all the music that I found was like really good. It wasn't like I found just some whatever mediocre music. It's all really excellent, and there's stuff for, intermediate players to really advanced players. And the album gives a really nice picture, I think, of 7 different composers that were pretty badass babes.
Awesome. So, from the album Wake the Sigh, here is Emma performing Waltz Number 4 by Dolores de Gogni. We are chatting with Emma Rush here on Classical Guitar Heroine podcast, and we just heard Waltz Number 4 by Dolores de Gogni.
So, having studied with Dale Kavanaugh, it seems natural start for your first recording to make space for women composers. And for decades, the argument has been made by some to not include or include very few women composers because an audience might not be familiar with their music, or they wouldn't sell concert tickets, or recording sales would be less. And I'm curious, were there any questions from concert organizers or audience members when you began adding women composers to your program?
No. So, I mean, it sparked a lot of discussion, which might be in part because I will never shut up about it. So maybe I forced a lot of discussions, but well, in terms of presenters, I think guitar is a little bit different than some other instruments where I find like the concert proposal kind of includes the repertoire, where in the guitar world you tend to be hired based on the artist. And so I'm sort of rarely needing to send a program, when I'm in the initial discussions about booking a concert. So it's more like a sneak attack that you've got me, and now all of a sudden this is the program. But I think audiences love it. People are super open to repertoire written by women, and I mean, I don't ever really highlight it that it is a program including music by women, or I don't introduce it saying this is a work written by a woman. I just kind of introduce it with the composer's name and the information about them in the piece, because I think we don't necessarily need to isolate that, like, look, she was a woman. Actually, all the work stands on its own, right? The music is all very good, or I wouldn't play it. And I mean, I'm really interested in concert programming that kind of makes sense and tells a story and has a theme. And for me, it doesn't make sense to be like, oh, I need a woman composer, so I'm just gonna plunk in some tune. I've always chosen the music because it's part of like the larger message that I'm trying to give with the program. And that's the same with any other, underrepresented composers as well. There's music by Black composers that will suit whatever theme you have in your program, music by LGBTQ composers, whatever. There's not much kickback against it, but I do find it's hard to get other people to do it. It seems to be like, oh, that's Emma's thing and she does it. Or I once had a colleague, I was in the audience for his concert, and he played a beautiful piece by Annette Kreuzbrink, but introduced it by saying, well, Emma's always telling me I need to play something written by a woman, so here it is. I'm like, no, that's not how you do it. That's not what I said. I mean, it's great that he played it, but the intro could have been finessed a little bit.
Yeah, it could have been a bit more positive, as opposed to like, well, I have to do this. Like you're taking bran for breakfast, like going to be good for you. Oh, okay. Well, then that leads me to my next question. Can you address the lack of representation of women in classical music?
Sure, it's stupid. And we find it kind of everywhere, right? It's from performers, composers, sound techs, producers, conductors. Every facet of the music field has this problem. And once again, it's not because like the work that women do is bad, right? It's just this horrible culture of keeping women out of the industry. So I try and think about it. I mean, sometimes it's quite depressing. You know, you can look, especially in our like guitar field. I've got a collection, you know, of JPEGs of guitar festival posters that are all guys. And I'm just thinking like I just don't know how you look at the poster and don't see that something's missing. You know, it sort of baffles me, but I try and just think that we have a big opportunity, you know, to change things, and now is the time, right? So starting those conversations whenever we can, with our colleagues, with our friends, with our audiences, introducing things in as, you know, in a positive way, that like not trying to shame people for not including music by women composers, because honestly, sometimes people have just not thought about it ever. And this happens a lot. Like you know, I talk with audience members that maybe are hobby guitarists after concerts, and they're just like, I never even realized everything I played was written by a man. It just, you know, it's so pervasive that sometimes people don't even think about it. But I try and, you know, obviously I'm programming music by women all the time, but I try and talk with presenters about that, and you know, maybe see if they want to request that from their next guests, or things like, you know, I'm one of the directors at Guitar Fest West in Calgary, and we've got a guitar competition this year, and we're offering, you know, a special prize that is a best performance of a work by a woman or non-binary composer.
And that'll be interesting to see how many competitors actually do take advantage of that.
I'm wondering if there's any difference from when I did this in 2018 in Hamilton. Maybe it was 2019. I think it was 2019. It was our last festival in Hamilton, and we offered that prize at the competition, and we gave it to the only single competitor that played one piece written by a woman, which is just like, are you bananas? We're offering you money to do it. You know, like, but I think I've definitely seen like a difference in that, you know, 5 or 6 years, where people are definitely programming more music written by women, especially among like a lot of younger players. They're really making an effort to be more, just have more diversity in their programming. So yeah, we'll see what happens this year. So just trying to find like ways all the time to just to address this and do what we can to change it.
Well, I'm going to change the topic a little bit. I was wondering if you have any comments or feelings about Mohawk College in Hamilton canceling the music program this year, especially because you're a past instructor. And also, what future do you see for post-secondary programs in North America, especially with many reducing course offerings or canceling music programs like Mohawk altogether?
I was a teacher there from 2011 to 2021, and it's I think it's a big shame that the music program closed. And of course, I think that when any music program closes, but Mohawk in Hamilton was a really special program. Like it's rare to find a college program that offers classical music, and this was a almost unique opportunity for many students that were not able either technically with their instruments, or in terms of music theory, or socially, you know, ready to go to university, but could really sort of thrive in this 3-year college program, and then be able to go on to university, or be able to just sort of go on and be a good working musician in the community. And it was a real gem, I think, for Hamilton. So it's a big shame that it's closed. I'm not surprised. I think the department was in decline for many years for lots of reasons that we don't need to talk about now. I know that one of the things they used to like make that decision was because I mean I don't think it had anything to do with the admin of the music program. It was, just a numbers thing, but they were seeing how many people from the music program had full-time jobs in the industry. And so this is just a not really a fair question, I think, for measuring this particular kind of success, because I mean, we all know so many musicians that can't say, yes, I have a full-time job. Like, we just have a full-time job of being ourselves, which is usually so many different things. And, a lot of us are freelancers and we've just got we've got little arts admin things going on. We've got recording projects, we've got concerts, we've got teaching, we've got grant writing, we've got like so many things, and none of them are full time. It's just the business of being freelance is full time. That's not really an accurate measurement scale. So I think finding some way to maybe, I'm not sure how to do it, but to be able to talk to the people measuring this stuff about how even people that are not necessarily working as musicians anymore, it's been proven that their music education is going to make them better doctors and better therapists or, whatever. And people go on to still be involved with music and they're in community orchestras and they're in choirs. And so the greater reach of having a music program in a community is of incredible importance, right? It really supports the community in so many ways that can't be measured by how many music grads have a full-time job as like Ms. Musician. So I think just, we need to find a way to sort of reframe how we measure that. But that's a fight for sure, I think, because I know so many music departments are in trouble. I think McMaster in Hamilton is also calling it quits, and it happens all over the place. But I think probably being pretty vocal about it is always important. I spend a lot of time writing to all kinds of people, but my elected representatives, etc., about various things, but also writing to the people, the schools that run music programs, attending student concerts, supporting student musicians, hiring them. I think finding ways where the community really kind of supports the programs as well as the program putting stuff into the community might be a way to, I don't know, chip away at it.
Well, this will give us some food for thought. And while we're thinking about it, here is Andante and Allegro by Angelina Panorama Huerta from Wake the Sigh, performed by Emma Rush. We are with Emma Rush here on Classical Guitar Heroines podcast, and we just heard Emma's recording of Andante and Allegro by Angiolina Panorama Huerta from Wake the Sigh. So, Emma, you have established many guitar festivals. It's incredible, including the Hamilton Guitar Festival, Nelson Guitar Days out in BC, Guitar Fest West that you mentioned in Calgary, Lone Star Guitar Festival in Texas, the Collegiate Peaks Guitar Retreat in Colorado, Wakefield Guitar Festival, and most recently, the Pigeon Lake Guitar Retreat. I was wondering if you could talk about the work that goes into setting up a guitar festival, because I can imagine it is incredible, and especially having multiple festivals per year in different countries.
Well, it's always a lot of work. And what I see in, a lot of different festivals, and, I'm a guest at many festivals as well. And I think you have to just have a certain kind of like demented personality to want to present guitar events. And I have this in spades. I somehow am just like not happy unless I'm organizing guitar stuff. But for like it is so much work, but for me the payoff is always so great because they're just such great opportunities for guitarists of all levels, right? Whether it's a student, a professional, or an adult community player, you just make so many connections. And I know, when I first started going to festivals back in my undergrad, the people I met there are, my good friends today, are my colleagues today. Those relationships have lasted, for years and years. And I know in Hamilton, I watched, younger guitarists get together and meet each other. And I've seen them go off and like form guitar duos or, work together in different ways. So the rewards of that kind of community building, I think is really, they're so great that it outweighs the work. And then with keeping track of all of them, I try not to do them all in the same week. But just have things like some of the things you mentioned are in the past, some are in the future, but just I think maybe I have a few sort of formulas in mind about just how scheduling works. I've got a little checklist of things that need to be done throughout the year to make sure that the event will be successful. And then of course you always have to just be working with great collaborators, which I have the good fortune to always have done.
I wanted to talk about your latest recording, A Dream of Color, which features music you commissioned by Canadian composers that are inspired by the Canadian Impressionist painter William Blair Bruce. So, who was William Blair Bruce, and who are the composers featured in this recording?
William Blair Bruce was an Impressionist painter with whom I share a hometown. So he's from Hamilton and wound up spending the bulk of his career first in France and then in Sweden. But he sort of always stayed like pretty connected to Hamilton, and I have a distant family connection to him, so I'm related to him, and I have exploited that for the project. But so also the art gallery in Hamilton was founded with like a donation of his paintings. So I grew up seeing them. Some people in my family had some William Blair Bruce paintings. So I just always sort of felt this kind of connection with that artwork. And it was always an idea to see what I could do that would sort of combine, this great painter he wound up being a little bit overshadowed by the group of seven, like the timing wasn't quite perfect for him. So he's not sort of as much in our consciousness as some Canadian painters are. So yeah, just an idea of how can we look at this art and turn it into some kind of music project. And yeah, so the idea came about to get a few different Canadian composers to look at Bruce's works and find a painting that sort of spoke to them and then create a piece that was inspired by a particular painting. And it wound up being so interesting because I chose composers who are all totally different. They've got different levels of familiarity with the instruments, and they chose like quite different paintings. And so the final project, the recording is, I feel like it's unified, but it's quite, quite different. It's a really interesting collection of music. And this was just great. And I had support from the Canada Council for the Arts for this, and also the City of Hamilton has a cultural enrichment fund, which also supported the project. So it was a great experience for me.
That sounds like it. We're about to listen to Red Rock Into the Light by Amy Brandon from A Dream of Color. What painting inspired this piece?
Oh, the painting is called Red Rock Saint Nazaire, and it's a painting of the coast in France, and it's got three different components. In the foreground is this bright orange cliff, the Red Rock, and then there's the sea and the sky. And Amy took each of those three components and made a three movement piece. I don't know if I've said that clearly. Each movement represents a different part of the painting. So this one we're about to hear is a red rock into the light, which is inspired by the swirling oranges and reds that are present in the cliffs.
And speaking of which, here is Emma performing from A Dream of Color. The piece is Red Rock Into the Light by the Canadian composer Amy Brandon. We are with Emma Rush here on Classical Guitar Heroines podcast, and we just heard Emma's recording of Red Rock Into the Light by Amy Brandon.
So, Emma, what guitars are you currently playing?
Oh, great question. I love it. So I'm playing, my main guitar is a new to me, well, new guitar I got last summer, and it's built by Yoshia de Young in Wakefield, Quebec. And that was a very, very exciting acquisition because I'd wanted one of Yoshia's guitars for years. I love her. She's a great person and an incredible luthier, such a great guitar maker. And everything kind of lined up that right at the time when I could afford one, there was one for sale. So that was just great. This is a real sort of dream instrument for me. And then I also play two period instruments from the 1800s. One is a anonymous French maker that was part of the composer and guitarist Katerina Pratten's collection. And then the other one is, it's another Pratten instrument, but it's basically the first signature series guitar ever was the Pratten guitar. It was made by Boozy and Co. in London in the 1850s. And each guitar had a label inside that said, like, I certify I have played and examined this instrument and deem it of the highest quality. And then it's signed and dated by Pratten. And they made, I think, less than 100 of them. And there's 13, I think, that are known to exist now. And I was lucky enough to get my hands on one. And it's one of my favorite sort of early instruments to play and just thrilling. You know, I'm very, very into Katerina Pratten. My next big sort of research and recording project is centered around her. So it's a thrill to be able to like have instruments that her fingers were also, on.
How did you know that the guitars was coming up for sale? Like how did that all happen that you were able to find these instruments by Pratten?
Facebook.
You're joking.
No, it was so there was a sort of inventory list of some guitars that were for sale by a collector in the UK. And then Jonathan Leithwood made a post about it, and then somebody tagged me in the comments, knowing that I might be interested. Yeah, and then the other guitar, that was the Boozy guitar, like the Pratten signature model. And then the other one I tracked down in Mission, British Columbia, of all places. And there's just a collector of guitar instruments there. And that was something I just like stumbled on going down a rabbit hole in one of my many like long internet search nights and just happened to see like this this ad for a Pratten guitar. And so yeah, so I made a little pit stop next time I was in Vancouver and did a little detour to Mission and yeah, got my hands on it. Well, I couldn't believe it. That was also, I got both of those guitars within like months of each other. So it was pretty special.
That's incredible. You actually did mention that one of your next projects is going to be with Katerina Pratten's work. Do you have any other projects you want to share with us?
Well, that's the big one. So I'm working on a collection of music that is written by Pratten and then also written by Pratten associated people. So the CD will have previously unrecorded Pratten tunes, quite a few of them, and then music by two of her students, music by her dad, music by her buddy Taraga, music by her childhood duo partner Rigondi, some music that was written for her. So the idea was, again, instead of being like a lot of these like historical woman projects are like, look, she's a woman. Who cares? So I'm thinking like, look, she's really interesting and was a great composer. So this, I think, will kind of show her work in the context of the time she lived. It will stand up beside, music of her peers. It will show sort of where she came from, her influence. And I think in that way will, yeah, just sort of be a sort of musical picture of Pratten and Pratten's world. And I'm pretty excited about it. I'll be recording it this fall on Pratten guitars.
Oh, that's even better, right? So, where can listeners find your music and your merchandise? And I have to just as an aside, I love your stickers. I am going to your website tomorrow and I'm going to buy a whole bunch of stickers because they are just amazing.
Oh, well, thank you. I'm very into merch. I feel like that's really missing in the classical guitar world. So I love making different stickers. I've made these like heavy metal John Dowland t-shirts. And I actually just ordered yesterday a bunch of Pratt temporary tattoos. Yeah. So you can find all of that on my Bandcamp site, which is emmarush.bandcamp.com. You can buy my CDs in the hard copy on my website, emma-rush.com. And I would love it if anybody listening would give me a follow over on Instagram. That's Guitar Emma. It's the same on TikTok. I post lots of stuff about women composers of the past and the present, other interesting music you might not have heard of, and of course you get all the immediate news about my hot merch drops. Yeah, but I always appreciate that, and I try as well to post, fairly regularly new videos on YouTube. The latest one I really love. It's a beautiful piece that Annette Kreuzbrink wrote for me in memory of the German guitarist Heike Mattheson. Um, so please head over there and have a listen to that.
We will absolutely do that. Speaking of music, here is Emma's performance of the Kelpies dance by Katarina Pratten from Wake the Sigh. Addendum to our podcast. Mariette, Emma, and I recorded our podcast before the Guitar Fest West Festival in August. We are happy to announce that there were 3 prize winners, including Audrey Owen, who placed 3rd, Gwyneth Egler, who placed 1st, and a special acknowledgement to Ethan's son, who won the award for Outstanding Performance of a Piece by a Woman Composer.
We would like to thank Emma Rush for speaking with us today. We would also like to thank Amy Brandon and Emma for allowing us to use the music that you heard on this episode. You can follow Classical Guitar Heroines on Facebook and Instagram. And remember, if you are a woman who plays classical guitar, you too are a classical guitar heroine. Thank you for joining us on the Classical Guitar Heroine podcast.